Hi students, today we talked about in class dividing polynomials, and in class we worked with long division, and you saw how difficult it was to divide polynomials using long division. So right now I'm just making a video on how to divide polynomials using synthetic division. So there's a couple of things that you need to realize. This right here is my dividend. And so that is what I'm dividing, and this is what my divisor. And what this divisor says, and it being a binomial as it is, it's saying that I could factor out an x plus 3 from here. And so one of the answers would be x plus 3, and I could set that equal to 0 and solve and find out that x could be negative 3. And that's where it would hit the x-axis if I graphed it. So instead of using positive 3 to divide everything by, I'm actually going to use x is equal to negative 3. And how I set up synthetic division, and you just have to follow along with me, is I take all of my coefficients for each of my terms, and if I'm missing like an x squared, I would put it a 0. But I'm going to do several examples so you can follow along. So my first coefficient is 5, my second is 12, minus 16, and negative 21. And this is the process. I bring down the 5, and this is just a brand new process that you probably haven't seen before. And when I bring down the 5, then if I multiply it by negative 3, I put that answer underneath my next term. And then I combine those two terms. When I combine those two terms by adding them, my answer is going to be negative 3. And so I take my negative 3, and again, I multiply it by the negative 3 that I have over here to the side to see if that's a factor, or see if that's an answer. So negative 3 times negative 3 is positive 9. Combine negative 16 and positive 9, come up with negative 7. Multiply negative 7 times negative 3, so that's a positive 21. And when I combine negative 21 and 21, it gives me 0. And that's like saying I have a remainder of 0. So in this situation, then I can go and use my answers and write whatever my quotient is. And if you see, I have x to the third is the highest degree of my polynomial. So I take one less. So I take my 5 as my answer and do x squared. And I take my negative 3 as my answer and I do x. And then my constant is negative 7. And so if I factored out an x plus 3, is what would be left underneath the binomial. So what that's saying is I can say x plus 3 and then multiply it by 5x squared minus 3x minus 7. And if I FOILed that out, I would come up with my original polynomial. So pause me if it doesn't make any sense. I'm going to start on number 2, and we're going to start by writing all of our coefficients. And so the coefficient for r cubed is 1, and then I have negative 7, and then I have 9, and then I have positive 12. And I have r minus 4 is equal to 0, so I add 4, so r is equal to 4. So I'm going to see if 4 is actually an answer to my polynomial. So at first I bring down the first one, and then I multiply by 4, 1, so 1 times 4 is 4. I combine those two and it's negative 3, and then I multiply times 4, so that's negative 12. And then I combine those two and it's negative 3, and then I multiply by 4 and that's negative 12, and my remainder is 0. So this ends up dividing evenly. And when I'm done, I can see I have r cubed, so my first term is going to be r squared minus 3r, sorry, I changed to x, minus 3. And that is my final answer whenever I divide by x minus 4. So you kind of see there's a pattern going along. And this is way easier than doing long division. So those of you who might be saying, what is she doing? This is something that you want to learn so you don't have to do long division for polynomials, as demonstrated in class today. So we'll do one more example, and then we'll move on to another topic. So here I have n plus 5 is equal to 0. Subtract 5 from both sides, so n is equal to negative 5. So out here I have negative 5. Then I have 1, 13, 33, negative 35. So I bring down my first term, which is 1, or my first number. I multiply by negative 5, so that's negative 5. Combine those two, that's 8. Multiply by negative 5, that's negative 40. Combine those two, and it's negative 7. Multiply by negative 5, and that's a positive 35, which my answer remainder is going to be 0. So looking at my first term, my highest degree is n to the third. So my highest degree of my quotient is going to be n squared, and that would be a 1 as my coefficient, plus 8n minus 7. So it is much easier, and as you get used to doing it, it gets much more easier. So hopefully that'll help you with dividing polynomials by a binomial.